Violent crime skyrockets in Canada to 14% higher than the United States, and those are just the official numbers. Meanwhile, Toronto Police Association admit that the Ottawa gun ban isn't working. They out and out blame the federal government for this increase in crime. Welcome to my channel, y'all. I hope you're having a great day. Well, earlier this week, a scumbag went on a rampage on the 401 near Toronto, shooting at multiple vehicles, including an off-duty Toronto police officer. Nobody was injured in that incident. However, later in the week, this same scumbag, who was out on bail and prohibited from owning a firearm, went on a rampage in downtown Toronto. In that incident, one person was shot and seriously injured and is recovering in hospital. Let's go to the news report, and then we'll talk about it.
A series of violent carjackings and shootings linked to a single suspect.
Just 24 hours ago, he was a wanted man. Tonight, he's behind bars.
A 29-year-old suspect accused of carjackings, shootings, and brandishing a gun on a major GTA highway. A suspect, CTV News has learned, was out on bail at the time. CTV's Janice Goulding joins us live with the latest details. Janice.
Hi, Michelle. Yes, a 29-year-old man already wanted for shooting at a number of cars along the 401 earlier this week is now facing charges related to shooting a man while doing a series of carjackings here in the city's East End. In this viewer video obtained by CTV News, you can see a gunman approach car after car after car.
The glove. What's that?
And in video posted to social media taken seconds later, you see that same man firing on a person in a red hatchback. The terrified driver eventually running away before the suspect moves on to yet another vehicle. Police say around 7:15 last night, a man approached 5 different cars on Dundas near River Street, firing on 2 people before making off in a stolen vehicle.
Tragically, during one of these carjackings, an individual was shot and was rushed to hospital.
The suspect drove away but would crash nearby at Lakeshore and Carlaw, where, producing the weapon again, police say he tried to steal yet another vehicle. When officers spotted the man, he fled on foot but would soon be apprehended, police recovering a loaded handgun. Police allege this was the same person who appeared in these dash cam videos taken in Mississauga just after 5 a.m. Tuesday. Here you can see a man brandishing a weapon, walking across live lanes of traffic and approaching vehicles on the 401 near Dixie.
More than 10 motorists reported their vehicles being hit by gunshots.
One of the cars that was struck belonging to a highly decorated senior police officer. According to court documents obtained by CTV News, the suspect, 29-year-old Troy Dennis LeDrew, had been arrested before for violent robbery and fraud. Detractors saying what's most egregious about this week's incident is that the suspect was out on bail with firearms prohibitions.
That's ridiculous. These JPs and these judges, they have to start keeping people in jail.
LeDrew was in bail court today to face more than 24 charges, including 2 counts of attempted murder, 6 counts of robbery with a firearm, 2 counts of discharging a firearm with the intent of endangering life, and failure to comply with probation.
The Toronto Police Association obviously had something to say about this. Let's go now to the CP24 report, where a representative from the Toronto Police Association was interviewed.
He has a history of violence. He's currently on bail and probation. Not surprisingly, also has a firearm prohibition. So it's one of these things, again, where our members are so frustrated where we see people involved in violent offenses released from custody time and time again. And one of our officers actually was the victim of the incident on the 401 2 days ago. And he's reached out to me and taken the unprecedented step to say, let the public know even a highly decorated senior police officer can be a victim of a shooting. His car was hit with a round. Thank God he's okay.
Let's go back to the fact that he was out on bail. This is what you're hearing from your members and how concerning that is. And you speak to your level of frustration because this isn't the first time we've heard something like this.
It is time and time again. We are so frustrated. Our members are so frustrated with what's going on at the federal level. We continue to lobby. I'll continue to talk about it at every opportunity I have. But when we see somebody out on bail for a violent offense, on probation for a violent offense, in possession of an illegal firearm, this person should never be let out of custody. Never be let out of custody and kept in custody until their trial. It's absolutely ridiculous, and I know the citizens are fearful, both our members and the citizens want the same thing. We want healthy and safe communities where people can go about their daily lives without the fear of this type of violence. Unfortunately, we see this often. You know, a few weeks ago, we had upwards of 100 rounds fired. It was in the evening, but still 100 rounds fired, where 16 firearms were seized. Again, all unlawful. The gun bans are clearly not working.
And that's a really good point. The gun bans are clearly not working because, of course, they focus on the wrong people. They focus on people with firearms licenses, people who follow the rules, people who don't commit crimes. This guy is a criminal. He's banned from owning firearms. He's banned from possessing firearms. And yet he has one. Why? Because he got an illegal firearm. And that should tell you everything about the federal firearms policy. Now, this, of course, made its way into Parliament on Friday. Let's take a look at some of the exchanges that happened there.
Madam Speaker, Canadians were shocked to see footage of a violent carjacker shooting at commuters. And of course, this individual was out on bail. The rate of violent crime in Canada has gone up 50% since this Prime Minister took office. Gun crime has gone up every year since this Prime Minister has been in office. And according to a report just released by the Fraser Institute, Canada's rate of crime is 14% higher than in the United States. When will this Prime Minister reverse his hug-a-thug policies?
Madam Speaker, what we've seen in the last 24 hours in Toronto is completely unacceptable and terrifying to the people in the city that I call home. We need to take action strictly and strongly on exactly what is happening in Toronto. The federal bail law is very, very clear. If someone is at a serious risk of reoffending, they are not to be given bail. I'm going to cite Premier Ford because his reaction was correct. He said, quote, "It's ridiculous. These JPs, these judges need to start keeping people in jail. We need tough judges and tough JPs when it comes to crime. People are fed up with it." That includes people in this House, Madam Speaker. Canadians are fed up with what we're seeing.
The Honourable Member for Fundy Royal.
Madam Speaker, this is ridiculous. These guys have been in government for 9 years.
Yes.
What happened yesterday is a direct result of their policies. Auto theft, Madam Speaker, is up 45% since 2015. In Toronto, it's up 328%. This is a direct result of this government's failure on bail and failure on crime.
Yeah.
Gun crime is up 116%, Madam Speaker. Homicides, 28%. When will this government, when will they step aside so Conservatives can crack down on crime and bring home safe streets for all Canadians?
Madam Speaker, with respect to being tough on crime, the critical piece is the administration of justice at the level of the province. And I want to point out what Premier Ford just said. He talked about JPs and provincial court judges, both of whom he appointed. What's really illustrated for this from that member from Nova Scotia is that in his very province, JPs who decide things like bail have to have legal training before they're appointed. That is an example of best practice in our federation. That is not the practice in Ontario. If we're going to improve the quality of the justice that's being rendered, we need to ensure people like JPs deciding things about serious risks of reoffending have legal training in Ontario the way they do.
Well, Madam Speaker, after 9 years of crime, chaos, and disorder, the legacy of this NDP Liberal government's radical, soft-on-crime policies is in tatters. This Prime Minister's hug-a-thug recklessness has caused violent crime to surge, and Canadians were shocked to see a violent, armed carjacking on our streets. It's time to put Canadian safety first. When will this government admit their failure, crack down on violent repeat offenders who are spreading deadly drugs and violence in communities, or better yet, just get out of the way so Conservatives can get the job done?
Yeah.
Madam Speaker, the people that decide to arrest an individual are police. The people that prosecute the bad guys are provincial crowns. The people that render the decisions are provincially appointed JPs and provincial judges. The people that run the jails for people to be placed in when they're denied bail are provincial detention centres. All of those relate to the province. The province needs to do its part, invest in the resources for cops, crowns, JPs and detention centres so we can keep Canadian cities safe.
I must admit he's not completely wrong. The RCMP have been underfunded when I was a member ever since 1987 and far before that time. Even when I was a special constable in 1985, I recognized it. And when my father was a member back in the 70s, I recognized it there too. They've been underfunded forever. And that really is part of the issue. The Liberals tend to blame Harper for a lot of cuts, and he did make a lot of cuts, and I blame him for that as well. It was short-sighted. However, back in the day, back when Harper was in charge, crime was going down. Now it's on its way up. And there's a really good reason for that. And it all has to do with liberal policies. What happened in 2015? What happened in 2018? And what has happened since then? In 2015, the Liberals were elected. In 2018, they legalized cannabis marijuana. And since then, they have legalized, or at least decriminalized, almost all hard drugs. Well, I can tell you from my experience as a police officer that alcohol and drugs fuel crime. I know a lot of you will disagree and say, well, the decriminalization and the legalization of cannabis marijuana is not a big deal. And they will compare cannabis marijuana to alcohol. Well, alcohol's not great either as far as crime goes. It actually fuels a lot of crime. But when you compare cannabis marijuana to alcohol, it's kind of like somebody saying, hey, I like apples, and then somebody getting right up into their face and yelling, well, what about oranges? It just doesn't make sense. Just because one drug, alcohol, is bad for you, it doesn't mean that another drug, cannabis, is any better for you. I've studied the effects of cannabis marijuana in university, and I've researched it on my own after university. And I can tell you, it is not a soft drug. It is not a safe drug. But I'm willing to disagree with people and, well, still be friends with them. The fact is, it's legal now, and we can't do anything about that. But the hard drugs, the so-called hard drugs, the drugs that kill people all the time, are now becoming legalized as well. It's a slippery slope. Even Dave Rubin, a person who admits to smoking marijuana, says that he would not support the legalization of marijuana in Florida. Why? Because there's a strong correlation between the legalization of marijuana and the collapse of society. This is his words, not mine, but you can see it if you just open your eyes to it. I'm willing to disagree with people and still be friends on this issue, but I can tell you it is a slippery slope. And when we see the decriminalization of all these other hard drugs and the resulting crime that comes with it, there's a major issue. But that's just my opinion. I'd love to know what you think. Put your comments down below. And while you're at it, please like this video, share with your friends and on social media. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and hit that bell notification so you never miss another video. Also, please join me on Thursday evenings at 6 p.m. Pacific time for my live stream, where you can join in on the conversation. Finally, I do teach the Canadian Firearms Safety courses. These are courses you need to get your Canadian Firearms License, also known as a PAL. And you need a Canadian Firearms License to possess or purchase a firearm in Canada, and sometimes even for employment opportunities. So if you reside on Vancouver Island and you would like to get your Canadian Firearms License, there are links in the description of this video to my website where you can sign up to take a course from me. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.